Out of all the thousands of video games that exist on this planet, only a small fraction of them will ever have their story told. When it comes to speedrunning, many great tales remain unknown. It's only a handful that will ever see their time in the limelight. If you ask me, some of the greatest stories in all of speedrunning are contained within the Jak and Daxter series, with the cream of the crop being Jak 3, a game with an untold story that's lightning in a bottle. The game's evolution ever since its release in 2004 is simply stunning. The way the route has progressed over time is unlike any other speed game out there. 10 special players have continually pushed this game to its absolute limits, and can call themselves a world record holder. Welcome to my 9-part series, where we take a deep dive into the speedrunning history of a PlayStation 2 classic. This is the story of the people who conquered Jak 3.
What?
He's just a machine. He's a machine.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Whoa!
It just really cracked that. It was just so good.
Yes! Yes!
He just adjusts, like, in the moment to just about anything. Like, how can he do it that fast?
Jak 3 was released in November 2004, and the earliest traces of anyone being interested in speedrunning the game came only 7 months after its release. A forum thread was created in June 2005 on Speed Demos Archive, the prime speedrunning forum and run publishing site in the mid-2000s. The thread was created by a user known as AAA2, who wanted to know if their video quality was sufficient enough to potentially submit a segmented speedrun to the site. The link that was posted along with the creation of the thread leads to a German rapid share site that's unfortunately not reachable today. In a different thread created in September 2005, AAA2 claimed a time of 4 hours and 29 minutes as his third playthrough of the game. This was presumably timed using Jak 3's in-game timer, which can be viewed at any point in the pause menu, and updates every time you save the game. It appeared that AAA2 wasn't satisfied with his time and wanted to improve it before submitting a run to SDA. However, as the months came and went, AAA2 said that he didn't have time to create a new run, and would upload the second half of his 429 even if he felt the run wasn't up to par. 429 is a very believable time for 2005, but once again, the run is not viewable, as he uploaded it to the same website as before. Regardless, this is likely the first completed playthrough with speedrunning in mind. Throughout the years, more threads would pop out that showed interest in Jak 3 speedrunning. One by ThaRixer in 2007, who had a full route written down and planned to do a run in 40 segments. One by Blaze in December 2008, who was curious about how the game's autosave feature would affect segmented runs. And in the same thread, Unreal had a Hero Mode route planned out in 44 segments. Hero Mode being Jak 3's New Game Plus mode. Despite so many different people showing interest, none of them ever ended up doing a run. It's a shame, but understandable in a way. By looking at AAA2's time and ThaRixer and Unreal's segment count, the length of Jak 3 is fairly intimidating. Jak 3 is a sandbox action platformer where the goal of the game is to complete missions for various characters until you reach the end where you have to take down Cyber Arrow and his ginormous terraformer to finish the game. There are a total of 60 missions to go through, so it's unsurprising to see the runners mentioned prior not bringing these routes to fruition. To speedrun Jak 3 in the 2000s, you had to be dedicated and committed. We would just have to wait for the right person to show up. In July 2009, a hero emerged from the shadows. Someone would finally show the world that Jak 3 had incredible speedrunning potential. This is Lapagné. Lapagné is known today for his extremely prolific tool-assisted speedrun resume, but back in the day, he was a pioneer of many classic PlayStation titles, such as Spyro 1 and 2, Ratchet & Clank 2, and Jak 2. Safe to say, Jak 3 was in good hands. In 2009, Lapagnier wouldn't just create one segmented run for Jak 3, he would create two. These runs would send shockwaves across the forums, especially when they saw the times. Lapagnier had completely defied the idea of Jak 3 being a long game. A final time of 1 hour and 22 minutes literally shaves off just over 3 hours from AAA2's claimed time from 2005. Before you can even begin to comprehend how big of a leap forward this run was, the man just drops a 47 a few months later. Between the 122 and 47, a couple of route changes are present, but I'll only focus on the faster run of the two since the 122 was recorded with his finest French potato. So instead, let's dive straight into the 47. The first thing to take note of is the fact that Lapagnier's 47 was done on Hero Mode. Hero Mode is technically the harder difficulty compared to any percent, since enemies and bosses take more hits. However, in Hero Mode, the player begins with a handful of things unlocked from the start, including all the vehicles, all the guns, and the jetboard. So it mostly evens out time-wise. While this series will mostly cover the history of any percent, this run is significant to cover in depth, as many of the glitches and strategies used will prove useful in any percent too. To help make understanding where we are in the game a little easier, I'll display a flowchart of the mission tree on the left-hand side. Lapagnier begins the run in the Arena Training Course, a tutorial level where you're supposed to collect 35 tokens. He uses the jetboard during some sections for movement, and roll jumping and punching for others. In the next mission, Earn First War Amulet, Lapagnier has to defeat 20 marauders in a small arena. Thanks to having all of the guns unlocked from the start, he manages to get the counter down to 7 before having to wait for some lava to rise. Once the kill counter reaches 5, Jak gets forced into his Dark Jak form and is unable to use his weapons. So Lapagnier groups up as many enemies as possible once the counter reaches 6, to kill a handful of them before having to clean up the rest with melee attacks. After completing the first two missions, this is where Lapagnier begins to break the game. The first skip on the list is Cleaver Skip. Normally, when walking into this hallway, you'll initiate a cutscene with Cleaver, who puts you on the game's third mission, Catch Kangarats. However, Lapagnier jumps over the trigger that's supposed to start the mission with a big jetboard jump and a trick to gain him additional height. Now Lapagnier has free roam over Spargus City and heads on over to the garage. The garage door is normally locked during the game's third and fourth missions, Catch Kangarats and Unlock Satellite. But by jumping past Cleaver and never starting these missions, you can enter the garage before intended. In the garage, there are 8 vehicles you'll slowly unlock as you progress the story. They're supposed to be inaccessible to Lapagnier at this point in the game, but since they're all unlocked on Hero Mode, he's able to jump into whichever one he likes to traverse the desert. Lapagnier chooses the Dune Hopper, a vehicle best known for its massive jumping capabilities and great speed when used in combination with boosts. Boosts can be obtained by defeating marauders in the desert, and Lapagnier squeezes as much speed as possible out of his boosts by jumping as they're running out. He holds onto one as he approaches a cave where the entrance is blocked off by some metalhead eggs. Normally, you're not supposed to access this cave until way later in the game, but Lapagnier has some tricks up his sleeve. Strap in, folks, you're about to see some magic. Lapagnier jumps onto a small platform to the right of the entrance, then boosts and jumps at the same time to make it to an area above the mouth of the cave. To get out of bounds, Lapagnier uses the Wave Concussor, a gun that's intended to clear enemies by charging and releasing these, onion rings? It can, however, be used for height exploits, as you can see Lapagnier using the weapon to get over an invisible wall. After going over the wall, he then falls into the entrance of the cave from above, where he keeps going deeper until he reaches a checkpoint where he ends the segment. After beginning the next segment, Jak spawns inside of the Dune Hopper rather than on foot, and now Lapagnier pushes deeper into the cave. After reaching the inner chamber, a mission immediately begins where Lapagnier has to destroy 10 metalhead eggs. This is actually a mission that's supposed to take place much later in the game, and is called Destroy Eggs in Nest, all the way down here in the mission tree. The trigger to begin the Destroy Eggs mission is active at all times, so if you can find a way into the cave early, you can do the mission whenever you like. One might assume that Lapagnier has to complete the other missions at some point anyway, but Jak 3 tracks progression very favorably for speedrunners. If you manage to get into any mission earlier than intended, the game assumes that you must have completed every mission prior up until the one you're currently on. Since the game now updates Jack's position on the mission tree, Lapagna has skipped playing 11 missions, saving approximately 30 minutes in total. Getting into Destroy Eggs would get the name Cave Skip, and the type of sequence break that Lapagna performed would be coined a percentage warp, since the percentage counter when you save the game jumps up an unintended amount, in this case from 3% completion to 22%. If you thought the shenanigans regarding this trick were over, there is one more quirk. Since Lapagna needed the Dune Hopper to get into the cave in the first place, he also has to do the mission with the Dune Hopper. When doing the mission casually, you're meant to team up with Sig, who will clear the wall at the entrance with a Peacemaker shot. You're then intended to destroy the eggs with the Gila Stomper, a much slower but sturdier vehicle that features a large turret that can auto-aim onto the eggs, making the mission far easier. Lapagna struggles a bit to destroy the eggs, which is understandable given the tools at his disposal. He gets the job done and moves on with the run. To continue the story progression, Lapagna now needs to complete these 4 missions in the second half of the mission tree, to move on to defend Ashlyn and the rest of the game. This is because percentage warping to destroy eggs only completes the missions on the same side of the mission tree. To complete the other side, Lapagna needs to drive to the temple, which is done by jumping across the chain of islands with the Dune Hopper. Once inside the temple, Lapagna is going to continue his mad spree of tearing this game apart. It's time for another percentage warp. The last mission on this side of the tree is Find Oracle in Monk Temple, which is located directly behind this door guarded by this sentry. The sentry is meant to be bypassed with the help of an invisibility power-up that you acquire during the mission Find Satellite in Volcano. In order to get the ability, Lapagna would have to climb the Monk Temple, use a glider to fly across the desert, and navigate through the lengthy volcano level. Instead, Lapagna had devised a genius strategy to sneak past the sentry. First, he climbs all the way to the top of the temple. He then starts using the wave concussor to assist him in jumping across some rocks to a spot where he can get out of bounds. He then leaps off of the top of the temple and lands perfectly in the hallway behind the sentry, skipping the detour to the volcano, saving at least 5 minutes in the process. Another very beneficial side effect to percentage warping is that the game will always give you all of the rewards from the missions you skipped. So Lapagna just gets the invisibility power up once he crosses a trigger that updates Jack's position on the mission tree. That trigger is right here at the entrance to this circular room. Lapagna is now on Find Oracle in Monk Temple, which has you do a few trials with the invisibility power-up that you definitely got the intended way. In the circle room, you're normally required to use the invisibility to sneak through these robots to hit a button in the center. Lapagna instead makes use of Dark Jack's Dark Blast ability to take the robots down and hit the button quicker. In the next room, you're intended to swing across a sequence of poles several times, while invisible to stay hidden from more sentries. Lapagna does use the invisibility power, but not in the way you might expect. Instead of swinging back and forth, he vaults off the first pole to make it over the gate on his side. He does this once more to save around 20 seconds with a more direct path. Lapagna finishes the mission in the power room, where Jack is awarded a Light Jack healing ability that won't see much use. He jumps through the portal and saves the game for the next segment. When loading his file to start the next segment, he's warped back to the entrance of the cave, skipping a solid minute of driving. Before the next mission, Defend Ashlyn, Lapagna must drive back to the garage to receive a call that activates the mission at the Oasis. After driving there, Lapagna now needs to defend Ashlyn from a Marauder ambush by taking out 60 enemies. He mostly uses the Peacemaker for this fight, a valid choice. It can take down multiple Marauders with a single shot, and can also one-shot the cars. The quality is pretty rough here, I gotta say, so let's move on. With the last Marauder defeated, Ashlyn hands Jack the jetboard and the Seal of Mar, both of which will be needed during a second visit to the temple. Now granted, Lapagna already has the jetboard thanks to hero mode, but this next mission is where you're taught how to use it by completing more trials. With the Seal of Mar, Lapagna can now access this yin-yang looking door in the circle room, where the next objective is to collect 18 Tide Pods. At least that's what they look like. You then meet another Oracle, who grants the ability to slow down time with Light Jack Freeze. The power-up isn't used much, but it is used once here to slow down some platforms, and then again in this room with these rotating blades. The final obstacle is a crumbling bridge that you're meant to slow down time for, but just jumping across with the jetboard did the job just fine for Lapagna, saving 8 seconds. Lapagna now makes his way through the subrails and arrives at the eco mine, where he's going to showcase some more clever skips. At the halfway point in the level, you go to an underground section by riding an elevator. Down here, you're intended to kick some rats into a wheel, where they will power platforms for you to make your way across. You're intended to do this 5 times throughout the section, but Lapagna effectively skips all of them with some sick jetboard jumps. Once Lapagna reaches the end, a switch is hit which initiates the beginning of Escort Bomb Train. In this mission, you need to use your guns to hit targets that'll lower a full train track to the end. His weapon of choice for this mission is the Beam Reflexor. This is easily the most overpowered weapon in the entire game, with shots capable of ricocheting off the walls to hit targets with ease. Lapagna now proceeds to the Precursor robot fight, a pretty easy boss all in all. Lapagna high jump spins straight to the 4th pillar, and uses the Vulcan Fury to hit a cart onto the robot's head 3 times. With that done, Lapagna has now entered Haven City, beginning the game's second act. This is the turning point of the run, as this is where the biggest sequence break in the entire game takes place. Instead of proceeding ahead with the next mission in the sewers, Lapagna heads towards the ruins area. By using the wave concussor and some spins against this wall, Lapagna is able to chain together a sequence of jumps to make it into a tunnel. This tunnel forces you into a slow walk for around 15 seconds. But once at the bottom, a massive percentage warp takes place. Upon touching the cutscene trigger, Lapagna has now skipped from the Precursor robot fight all the way down to reach Catacombs via Palace Ruins, the game's 5th to last mission, saving approximately 2 hours. This was discovered by a person called The Gameplays back in December 2007, a rather valued glitch hunter who was a part of the Jack Games early glitch hunting scene on YouTube in the mid-2000s. Once Lapagna enters the Palace Ruins, he reaches the end by using a combination of the jetboard and a technique that was discovered as early as March 2005 called the Infinite Flight Glitch. Lapagna is able to gain infinite height using the Lightjack wings by cancelling each wing flap mid-air with the Lightjack shield. The next mission is the infamous Break Through Ruins, a difficult vehicle mission I made an entirely separate video on. You'll definitely see this mission again later in the series, so let's move on for now. After going through a second subrails mission, Lapagna does the next mission, Destroy Dark Ship, more or less as intended. He goes through the big room with the Lightjack wings, and uses the jetboard a bit to save a bit of time during the escape sequence. Finally, Lapagna has to take down 2 phases of the final boss. In the first phase, the Terraformer, 14 targets must be hit across all of the boss's legs to take it down. A very difficult section casually. Lapagna had devised a brilliant route for the time that allowed him to weave in between the legs to take him down in around a minute. For the second phase, Lapagna scales the boss by using the platforms and begins a long battle with Errol. Normally, the final boss is defeated in 4 hits, but the developers upped the hit counter to 6 on hero mode, losing Lapagna a minute or so. In the end, Cyber Errol is defeated, and that's Jak 3 hero mode in 47 minutes. A remarkable run from a real trailblazer, with solid routing, good execution, and amazing skip discoveries. After Lapagna's run, activity for the game went pretty silent over at SDA. His run just set the standard so high for the time. It was daunting to go up against. A couple of people showed interest, and a few small glitch discoveries would be found. But no one was willing to do a new run to challenge Lapagna. He was the man on top, and would be for a while. In 2011, 2 years after Lapagna's legendary 47, a new challenger was ready to take him down. From one French speedrunning genius to another, the world was in for a treat with Tom Jack.
So Tom Jack was like a YouTuber like long before speedruns were kind of like common for this game, I suppose. But he would just like constantly post videos of like weird glitches, weird like strats that he'd found, and all sorts of just interesting things as well. And that was just kind of his thing, like he was innovating and finding new ways to play the game.
Tom Jack era was something you had to witness, I guess. It was like insane glitch hunting. I mean, if you go to his YouTube today, you can still see like hundreds of videos of like crazy glitch in Jak 2 and 3.
I respect like his glitch hunting so much. Like usually he shows off in his clip just like him doing something, and it just doesn't always go into the entire setup. I just see something, I was like, I have no idea how he's doing that. Like it's some amazing shit that he's pulling off.
TomJack's entry into the SDA forums was bold. Forget any. Here is the new world record of Jak 3 speedrun. The perfect speedrun. Here is my speedrun. The video attached was a new hero mode segmented run in 42 minutes. Lapagne's run was finally beaten, and by a whole 5 minutes too. One area where TomJack immediately saves a good bit of time over Lapagne is the use of unlockable secrets that are mostly exclusive to hero mode. Upon beginning the run, TomJack turns on infinite ammo, infinite light and dark jack, turbo jetboard in desert, and unlimited vehicle turbos. Lapagne purposefully chose to keep his 47 clean without the use of secrets, but TomJack bought as many as possible that would save him time throughout the run. In Destroy Eggs, TomJack uses a well-placed supernova in each of the 2 rooms to wipe out all of the eggs very quickly. A very clever strategy, but only really possible on hero mode. When visiting the temple for the first time, we see one of TomJack's big new innovations to the route. Instead of climbing to the top of the temple to sneak past the sentry, TomJack realized that one of the pillars near the bottom is not solid if you fall into it from above. He then lines up a tricky jetboard jump to make it into the hallway behind the sentry, saving a minute on Lapagne. In the second visit to the temple, TomJack had devised a new but very difficult approach to the rotator room. Instead of slowing down time to get across the first rotator, TomJack used the jetboard and timed his jumps to get through the spinning blades. But that's not all. TomJack pulled out the wave concussor and jumped under the gated archway to skip the next 2 rotators. This is a very difficult jump even today, and TomJack nearly gets it without a ledge grab in his run. TomJack's glitch hunting abilities would continue to shine in Eco Mine, as the first half of the level is completely skipped with this trick. This came to be known as the Eco Mine proxy, one of the flashiest tricks in the run that isn't too hard to perform. All TomJack does in his run is get the jetboard stuck inside of these crates, faces to the left, and begins mashing the X button to get a big launch. The only pivotal factor with this trick is memorizing the level layout to know where you have to steer the jetboard to. Around 15 seconds was gained here on Lapagne. Instead of playing Darkship as intended, TomJack used a strategy that had been mentioned in a post by Unreal on the SDA forums, where Infinite Flight Glitch could be used to fly through the ceiling and go straight to the elevator that takes you to the escape sequence. This was easy to do, and saved a solid 50 seconds over playing the level casually. Lastly, TomJack had improved on Lapagne's Terraformer route to save an additional 8 seconds. This route would be the standard for years to come. The run certainly lived up to the hype, proving that Jak 3 was still far from a solved game. It wasn't perfect in the way TomJack described it, of course, but still, yet another impressive showcase. Lapagne and TomJack had laid the groundwork with their incredible segmented runs. Their ingenuity showed that with a little bit of thinking outside the box, the intended progression of the game could be broken wide open. With the help of percentage warps, Jak 3's length was now a lot more approachable as a speedrun, paving the way for a new generation who now had an easier time picking up the game. So after such an explosive start, where do we go next? Well, we're in 2011, and the speedrunning landscape would begin to change drastically. The days of posting segmented runs to Speed Demo's archive was a dying art, as single segment speedruns would begin to take its place, and a familiar face would cultivate Jak 3 into a new era. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing or supporting me on Patreon. Take care, and I'll see you next time for Era 2.